Yeah, let's try that again. Good evening, everybody. This is Bob Mader, Chairman of NAFI. Glad you could be here. Tonight's special guest is John Niehaus. Some of you have come to know very well over the last, 4 years now, John?
Something like that. Time flies when you're having fun.
There you go. And why he puts up with me as his boss, I'll never understand. But John is our Director of Program Development. He's responsible for dealing with membership, helping folks out, helping get content put together, keeping me honest, and working with the master CFIs. He's done a tremendous job for us. You'll see him, if not directly, if you're part of our Facebook group, John, and LinkedIn group. He's responsible for maintaining all contacts there. John, you're a CFI, but I'm not going to steal your thunder. Tell us about yourself. And I'll turn the screen over to you in a moment.
Bob, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Are you really?
That's better. It just sounded a little muffled.
Yeah, everybody's complaining about my voice over an internet microphone that I was using before, so I'm using my cell phone and earbuds. And apparently that's not working that well either. But again, I'd like to introduce John Niehaus, Director of Program Development, responsible for NAFI social media and other outlets, and our master program list. And John, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, like Bob said, I've been with NAFI for somewhere between 3 and 4 years. I'd have to look, but I've been here a little while, and I have been managing a lot of the programs. I manage the master program and a lot of our outreach and retention stuff, including the website. I have been instructing for, going on 5 years, I think. I've done some independent instruction. I've worked Part 61. I've worked Part 141. I currently work for 141 University, instructing in addition to my time here at NAFI. So it keeps me busy, keeps me active, and I have a lot of fun doing it too. So that's a little bit about me. And today, basically, our plan is to sort of get you started on social media. I don't think that we're going to answer all of your questions today. In fact, we were actually talking about possibly making this somewhat of a series because it's really a much bigger topic than can be covered in one evening. So, as we move forward, think about questions that you might have that we didn't answer today, and maybe you can submit those to actually our social media pages or our internet or our emails, or any of our other ways of contact, and we can maybe even customize a presentation or two to discuss these questions you have and make everybody a little more engaged.
Well, NAFI's getting big and bigger, but I don't think we own the internet yet. So, are you ready for me to send it over to your screen?
I am ready.
There we go. You're now. As soon as you're set, you're the presenter. You're up.
Okay. So like I said, we're basically going to do a introduction to some of the social media that's out there, mostly the social media that NAFI uses. Of course, there's going to be more, and we're still kind of dipping our big toe into the water here, so there's certainly things that we're not doing. But hopefully it'll get you started and get you to a place that you can actually start doing some of these things too. So I'm sure you've noticed that we actually have all of our social media buttons at the bottom of our website. You've probably seen this on a lot of different websites, and really it's just a way to get everybody to understand that, hey, we're actually part of these communities, and if you'd like some extra contact, extra feedback from us, or anything interesting that we can provide, a lot of times we're going to be posting it to these different venues. At the bottom of our website, of course, you'll see the Google+, the Facebook, the Twitter, and LinkedIn pages. If you click on any of those, it's going to take you directly to the NAFI branded page on those particular outlets. So I figured we'd start with Facebook, basically because it's the one that everybody knows the best. It's the biggest. It's kind of the big gorilla in the room, and I think it's where most people choose to start. So there's a couple different ways of going about Facebook. We started off as NAFI as a Facebook group. That's kind of how Facebook actually started with any of their business pages. It was a way to encourage people who had similar ideas or similar things to talk about and put them all in one place. NAFI does have one of these groups, and it's our oldest one in terms of all of the social media that we have. And really what it's about is asking people to become part of a community. It's asking them to be able to post content that's important to them while still seeing content that's important to us, and that allows us to generate conversation and hopefully a positive feeling about not just what we're about, but the industry in itself. One of the things you can think about for the group pages themselves is it's not necessarily going to grow your business. It's not necessarily going to make you money, but what it will do is it'll get people talking. It'll get people to value what your thoughts are on different things, and hopefully that might correlate with, maybe somebody's having a conversation, on the water cooler about you, or, at the airport, or whatever it may be. So while it's nice, it may not be the best way to start in terms of the things that you can do, unless you've got a specific idea of how to group people together. So where we are now in terms of how Facebook really works is we have the sort of fan pages on Facebook. I'm sure you've seen these before. You can look at different bands, movies, companies. Pretty much if there's something that people could possibly like, there's a Facebook page for it. Of course, NAFI is no different. So we set up our NAFI fan page. It's all about the company. It talks about where we are, how to contact us, different photos that we've posted, things that we've liked, and it's sort of a way to really learn about the company, and that's how people tend to use it. They tend to, before they start purchasing, they tend to actually look at the Facebook page as a way to gain information to find out if it's worth following through with. So, of course, one of the ways that the page is valuable is it allows you to communicate directly with the fan base. You can post anything you want. You can, tell people a message. You can post a video, a picture, or you can take something that somebody else has posted and repost it onto your own fan page. That's the also nice thing about it is that your fans can also repost anything that you put on. That does mean that you have to be a little bit careful of what you say, but the nice thing is people will share your business for you. That's sort of making marketing easier for you because you're not doing all the work. You're letting people who actually enjoy what you do help you get the message out. So the nice thing is you don't have to start from zero. If you have a contact list, specifically a business contact list, you can actually use that list to build contacts. You can send a sort of generic Facebook email out that says, hey, we have a Facebook page. We'd love to have you like our page. And the nice thing is if they don't have a Facebook account or they go, hey, what is this? I don't know what you're talking about. The message from Facebook actually is customized to automatically say, you have an account, we'd like you to like this page, or you don't have an account and we'd still like you to like this page, but you have to have a Facebook account first. It gives people who may not know exactly what it is sort of a tutorial on how to join. So that makes it all easier and less confusing for people. So the nice thing is it does allow the direct communication and response from members. Members can post questions, they can post responses to your articles, and they can also do sort of testimonials on how much they like you, and any questions you may have. Of course, you can see there that there was a gentleman asking about the membership drawing that we did prior to AirVenture. So that was kind of a good way for us to be able to respond to him and say, hey, this individual won, and keep following to find out what the next ones are. Now, that does leave the possibility for negative comments. They can be removed if need be. But in all of the research that I've done in terms of social media, sometimes a proper response to a negative comment can actually be more powerful for your business than actually removing it and pretending it's not there. Not only does removing it make the person who posted it even more upset and more likely to go outside of your possibly complain. But the response, of course, is a personal touch that allows people to feel like you've done something for them. And with social media, I can do that at, midnight. I could do it at, 6 in the morning. And having sort of a faster communication structure makes people feel like it's all worth it. Like it's better for them to be a part of this particular group. One of the other features is you can actually like other brands, other businesses. So you can actually favorite some of the companies that maybe you've partnered with. For us, we've favored some of our corporate supporters, some of the flight schools we've worked with in the past, are currently working with. So it allows people to see some of our partnerships and some of the other brands that we feel fit in with our style or with our values. Another nice thing is it lets you promote things. It allows you to promote sales for your business. It allows you to promote possible events. And it can post it directly to a Facebook calendar that personal accounts have, so that it allows them to remember, hey, I've done, or hey, this is a sale that I want to take advantage of. So then you breach into Google+. Now, Google+ is actually very similar to Facebook, and you'll hear me say this again when we get into some of the other pages. But it's just a different market. There are a lot of similarities in terms of you still post content, you still have followers, and followers can repost things. But each one has their own sort of positives. The nice thing about having a Google Plus page is as you begin to build your page and you begin to build your brand, the Google Plus page will actually link in with Google, the search engine, and that allows for Google to then optimize your searches and makes it easier to position your website with your social media page, and those start to begin to connect to each other, which then allows more traffic on both ends, which is really nice. LinkedIn's the next kind of important one. I'd say this is the next important one after Facebook. And sometimes it depends on the actual industry you're in. In most professional industries, ours included, you'll find that the LinkedIn groups or LinkedIn pages tends to be much more professionally oriented. You're going to have a lot more communication with people who are actually doing the job or interested in it than just kind of looky-loos, people who, I like that, I'll pay attention to that later. So you'll see, more business professionals, people associated with companies, people are out there doing the job that are going to be more involved in this particular structure. For LinkedIn, NAFI also has 2 pages, similar to Facebook. The difference is that the group page is actually the more valuable page. It's sort of flip-flopped. And the reason for that is again, we have much more participation, and it's much more on the professional side. And so you'll see that if you actually go and look at the group, you will see that it's much more member-submitted content. And there's a lot of discussion on, okay, this is the right way to do things, this might not be the right way to do things, or I was looking at this particular reg and I couldn't figure out if this was legal or not. And so you'll find that a lot of other people will chime in and say, okay, well, I was looking at the reg too, and here's my interpretation of it. So you'll see a lot of the same things in terms of being able to post and all that fun stuff, but the participation in the actual communications will be slightly different. The nice thing is that when you create the page, it allows you to create certain permissions. These permissions allow you to specifically approve or deny people who may or may not be fitting into the group. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to our approve page for the group and seen, a fitness instructor who, for whatever reason, saw instructors and decided it was a good idea to join. I get various people from, nations that are not big on flight instruction. I get all kinds of stuff. You can actually go through there and change the way that individuals come in.
John, may I ask a question here?
Yes, sir.
Have you had any issues with people? Excuse me. Have you had any issues with people, with spammers trying to get in to any of our social media pages? since you brought that up?
I've had a few. Like I said, I was trying to be careful of what I was saying, but I've had some scammers from various other countries that have tried to come in, and I've denied some of those. I have had people that have tried to use our page for sort of their own personal gain. I don't have any problem with people promoting their businesses or any of that kind of stuff, but there is a place for that. On our group, there's actually a LinkedIn has provided a promotions page. So it allows you to say, hey, my company is X, and we're having a sale, and it's for this. Now, for our group, I try to keep it to things that are actually related to the industry, but I don't have any problem with any of that. And usually those are sort of things that are ground rules set in when you actually create the group. I've had to delete a few things that didn't apply, but again, the nice thing about LinkedIn is it's generally people who understand what you're trying to do, and they're part of the industry, and they legitimately care about the conversation. It's not so much about the I'm in it for me, and here's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Mark, and I'm going to butcher the name, Santa Croce, I believe that's how you pronounce it, posted in the chat that his comment is LinkedIn is great for those looking for a job, but not great otherwise. He says he's a minority, but do you have a response to that? I know we're using a lot of things, and I don't want to take up too much time here. We'll do questions at the end, but I just wanted to address that while we were here.
It all depends. I've done some scouting in terms of looking at different conversations, not just on our page, but on LinkedIn in itself. And it definitely is good for looking for a job. I mean, it is sort of a community with everybody's virtual resume posted. That is definitely something that is out there. However, some of it is what you put in, you'll get out of it. So, when you go to a specific group, if that group is actually something that is important to you, it's a great way to get answers. Like I said, I've seen people post about questions on regulations, questions on I'm having a student do this. Is that the right way to do it? What would you think? Is it even legal? It's a great way to get other people's opinions on it. Certainly NAFI is here to help you with those things. But if you want to get a much larger group opinion, part of NAFI's job isn't always answering the questions, providing you with a roundtable discussion of what everybody thinks, because sometimes it's not always black and white.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, just wanted to put that out there. Go ahead, John.
Sure. If anybody has any questions, feel free to stop me. Otherwise, I'll just keep going. So I'm more than happy to answer anything I can.
And we'll open up all the mics at the end. Just as a bit of overhead here, since that came up, I've muted several mics. If you can mute your mics at home, I can open everybody up, but we're getting some crosstalk and feedback. So I've muted several people here, and I can open them up. But if you have a question, unmute yourself and jump in. But in the meantime, please do mute your mic, and I'll open up the mics again. And if I'm getting some interference, I'll mute it again, and then we'll open up everything at the end of your presentation. Go ahead, John.
Sure. And Bob, if you can watch the sort of chat field for me, because I might not notice, I'm happy to answer questions through that as well.
Oh, yeah, and I'm doing that. Okay.
Excellent. So the other page that I was telling you about was the LinkedIn page, or the LinkedIn business page. And again, not to be sort of a broken record, but it's very similar to the other pages we've already talked about. In fact, I actually just learned about this page. It's a new feature of LinkedIn. And the cool thing is that it actually, while it does all the same things as the other pages, again, you're sort of targeting a more engaged community, or in a lot of cases, a more engaged community. And what actually brought us onto this particular venue is, and Bob, you'll remember this, I was actually reading an article from LinkedIn, which is sort of showing you a positive on this, that was talking about a company that had a certain amount of money to spend and was trying to expand their business and decided that they were going to focus on LinkedIn. And what they were able to do is actually create a targeted marketing page and promotional page, and they actually did see a reasonably large bump in their business. And I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was an association of some kind. But it does show that if you put the effort into these sorts of pages, you can really get a nice response. And sometimes it's not always about the financial gain. It's also about the atmosphere, the communication, the community of it. And we'll get to some of that a little bit later. So see that the nice thing is it does allow for you to not just target your marketing or target your posts, but it also allows you to target it to specific audiences. So I just happened to do a sort of short search for various aviation-related and flight training-related individuals and businesses on LinkedIn. And if we were to start a sponsoring campaign for our particular posts, I mean, we've got almost 4 million people that we could be talking to, and that's something that you wouldn't really find in any other way. There's no way that we could send out 4 million mentors or 4 million, hey, you should join NAFI postcards. It just would be absolutely not feasible. So it's a whole different atmosphere. So Twitter's the next big one. And this one is the one that a lot of people tend to be sort of scared of because it's a little bit different than the rest. The page itself does look very similar to some of the other pages that you found or that we've shown you, but it's much different in terms of how it actually works. It's meant to be very short. It's meant to be news blips or bits of inspiration. You're not allowed to go more than, I believe it's 64 characters on Twitter, so every message has to be as short as possible because otherwise you're not going to fit it in. But it allows for people to scroll through everything that they're following reasonably quickly, and it allows them to sort of pick out the ones that they particularly like. And of course, on any of these, if you look through the presentation after the fact, I have on top underneath the Twitter accounts our actual handles or how to find us on these various social media outlets. So in fact, on Twitter, we're NAFI Instructors. So it still allows you to post the news and updates and special deals and all that fun stuff. But it definitely provides it in a much more sort of fast and furious kind of way. The cool thing is it generates the conversation much faster. So not only are you posting things and looking through things quicker, but people are responding faster. They're favoring your posts over other posts, and then they're hopefully, if they like your message, they're actually retweeting your post, which basically is just a fancy way of saying that they're taking your post, posting it themselves, and for every person that then retweets, you're getting access to whoever follows them. So in our case, if you look at the sort of middle of the page, it says we've got 120 or 150 tweets. We have 231 people that we're following. Those are people and companies and other things. And then currently we have, at least when this came out, we have 106 followers. So if we retweet something that you post, then anything that you post will go out to all of your followers, but then go out to all of ours. So it sort of branches off into the tree, and everybody who then retweets, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So the more successful your content, hopefully the more people will retweet, and that just gets your brand out there to individuals that it would never have seen before. And you could argue that sometimes, having those people it may or may not help you, but brand exposure can mean a lot, regardless of whether it's something that is somebody who's going to come back and purchase your product.
John, and I'm going to jump in. I did some checking while you were talking, and the character limit is 140 characters.
Thank you. It still doesn't seem like nearly enough. I can't tell you how many times I've run out of what I wanted to say and had negative characters in there where I had to go and shorten the message. So if you ever see a NAFI tweet and it sort of doesn't make sense, it's because I had 3 sentences that I had to squish down into 124, I think is what she said. So
140.
140, thank you. So that's really what that's all about. But it's kind of fun to be able to have to be creative on some of these. So I know this is a very wordy slide, but I'll sort of summarize it for you. There is a art to creating a post. one of the things that you want to keep in mind, and all of the things that I've read and all the things that I've seen, is that it's really not always going to be about your business. People don't want to follow you to watch a commercial about your business every time they go on social media, because they really go on there for fun, for their own amusement, to learn something, to see a cool video or a cool picture, or contribute in some way. So some of the best ways to actually engage people, which is really what you need, is to ask them a question, talk about an experience, get them to say, oh yeah, my first flight was in this, or my first flight was in that. You say, hey, here's how I teach something. How do you guys do it? So asking these questions can one, generate a really cool conversation, and two, again, in somewhat of a self-serving standpoint, for everybody who talks, basically then your thread gets seen by anybody who's friends with them. So it just increases your brand exposure. Movies and videos tend to be some of the most recognizable posts. People, I think I read a report that said that a image or a movie was, I think, 50% more likely to be engaged by somebody, and I think 70% more likely to be remembered than a text post. So sometimes you can't necessarily get around just a text post, but if you can find a related image, you're more likely to actually have somebody stop and pay attention to it. So that can be a lot of fun too, to find things that are related. And the nice thing is, if you happen to find a, say, news article or something, most of the algorithms for the particular companies will actually take a photo that's related to the news article and post that with your post. So you don't have to find something for everything. It'll actually make it a little bit easier for you. Things for motivational, nostalgic, that works really well too. It gets people to sort of think back to times gone by and the difference between now and then, and that can be really engaging as well. But there is a place for actual direct marketing. I believe one of the reports I said was for every one direct marketing post, you should have at least 5 to 10 unrelated, unmarketing posts, so that you're not bothering people with, oh, you should buy our product, oh, we came out with this, oh, we came out with that. But there is a place to try to get that out there, and providing positive news and things that you're doing doesn't necessarily count as a sponsorship or a selling advertisement on the social media, but it does allow for brand exposure, and that's one of the things that you really hope that people are going to share or retweet, or however the particular company calls it. So mix in some of those, mix in some of the promotions now and then, but just don't necessarily cover your own business or your own interests on everything that you post, because you'll discourage people, and eventually they'll just stop following you. So that doesn't really help quite as much. One of the things to remember, and this is sort of the last part of all these posts, is that you really can't find or you can't look for a direct correlation right away. Social media, especially if you're going to try to get some sort of business activity out of it, is something that doesn't happen immediately. So be patient with it. And again, we'll sort of cover that a little bit later. So all of this seems sort of daunting. If you've got 4 or 5 different accounts, you may be thinking, oh boy, I really just don't have the time. Even if it's the same message across 4 different social media accounts, which is right now, that's sort of what we're doing. It can be a lot of work. I mean, they can say that for a company, a moderate-sized company who has a larger social media presence, I mean, you can be anywhere from 20 to 40 hours a week directly on social media. And, a lot of us, especially as instructors, whether you're an independent instructor or you own your own business, you probably just don't have that kind of time, because you want the prop spinning. So there are some actual organizations or companies that can sort of help you manage it. And I say that sort of tongue-in-cheek, because it's not so much that you're going to talk to this particular company and say, here's what I want, now do it for me. What they're going to actually do is provide you a resource to squish it all together and then post from one place. So a lot of these particular logos that you see here are some of the different social media management solutions. The one that looks like an owl is the one that we use. That's called Hootsuite, and we'll discuss that particular one. But there's a few others over there, and I'm looking for my notes real quick. Let's see, where did I find it? Stand by. So we have Buffer and another one called TweetDeck, and we have Grow Social and Sprout. And so they're all going to be about the same in terms of helping you manage the social media outlets that you have. It's just a matter of some of them are going to have special reports that they do. Some are paid, some are free. The Hootsuite that we use as NAFI is a paid one, but we have a sort of it's free, and then if you want to do more on it, then you have to pay. So we're not actually paying for it. But it may be something that in the future, Bob, I may try to talk you into.
That sounded like you're making a budget push there.
Well, So for Hootsuite, it's kind of neat because what you can do is you can actually connect your various social media into sort of one place, like I said, and then I can compose a message, and it will not just directly post to all three of those particular accounts, but I can decide that I want it posted in an hour. I can decide I want it posted in 3 days. So what I actually like to do is I'll find a bunch of different topics that I want to talk about or bring up, and I'll post for the next several days. That way, not only do I not have to worry about being home to click the button, but I've sort of condensed a bunch of work all into one time. The other nice thing is with the auto scheduler that I have shown here, you can choose how many of your messages go out a day, and then what it'll actually do is it'll look at the accounts that you have, and it will decide on the most optimum times that people who are following you are actually online. So if you have, say, 100 followers, and at noon when everybody's out to lunch, 75 of them are usually online, it's going to post at that time so that the majority of people will see it. So that's really kind of nice, and it's difficult to stay ahead of the game by yourself because not only do you not have those algorithms, but actually Facebook keeps changing things in terms of how far your posts go to basically steer you towards having to actually pay to advertise your posts and stuff like that. So this will help get you out of having to actually pay for any direct marketing. So that's actually kind of nice. And again, all of this is free. When you want to start generating more complicated reports, when you want to connect to, I believe, more than 3 accounts at a time, that's when they start to charge you. So it's sort of an increase in functionality that the charge is for, but definitely worth the price of 0. So as you see here, this is back from the 16th, and it has a bunch of stories that we are going to run, but at that point hadn't yet. So we had it backdated for, I think, about a week. So not so much a social media outlet, but it does connect, is Constant Contact. If you've never used it before, Constant Contact is a way to send out mass emails. This is how we do eMentor. Now, I would caution to say mass emails because there is a difference between a mass email and spam. Okay, spam is unsolicited, spam is annoying, spam is telemarketers. A mass email is a direct target of people who want to see specific content, and hopefully everybody gets to read eMentor and enjoys it. So that's the major difference. So with Constant Contact, what we like to do is we'll put out things like review email, of course, eMentor, any news blips or hey, PTS has changed. Here's an email that tells you that here's the differences. So it's allowing us to do that. But the nice function only doesn't allow us to, just like Hootsuite did, post things or send out emails into the future and pre-schedule them. But there's also a nice feature that they came out with, I believe it was fairly recently, that they call Simple Share. And the cool thing about Simple Share is that it actually allows you, again, like Hootsuite, to actually take your constant contact message and post it directly to social media. So when we say, hey, we're going to do our master and review email, if you're a follower on any of our social media, you'll see that it actually, our master and review email gets posted to social media. It's not so much that I'm taking it and uploading it. I've got it pre-connected to Constant Contact, so that the instant that it becomes available in your inbox, it's also available on our social media. And you may or may not see it first there, because you may not check your email as much as you check your Facebook or your Twitter or your LinkedIn. And you can choose any kind of thumbnail or pictures you want. It's just a way to optimize that. So then we get into the actual advertisement section of it. There's always something in it for Facebook. There's always something in it for Twitter. But there are some nice benefits that come along with actually advertising. So what does it actually mean? We have our page. Various companies have their pages, and that's for them. But to actually recruit more people who they don't want completely organic, there are ways to actually fund that and have Facebook as an entity, or Twitter or LinkedIn, actually put your brand directly in front of somebody and kind of poke them in the face with it and say, hey, you should look at this. And so you can actually customize your own advertising campaigns, and that'll show up on the side of their Facebook. It'll show up in their news feed, and it's not something that they can necessarily say go away or get rid of. It's something that will just show up because Facebook tells it to. So when you create your own page, you can see sample advertisements, or you can create any of these promotions that you want. The cool thing about it is, as you're creating these, you have sort of interests or buzzwords, I like to call them. And it took me a while to sort of figure out ones that would work for us. And it's kind of interesting the way you have to do it, because you have to think outside the box on these. I think we tried an advertising campaign, and I had things in there like Top Gun the movie, and Disney's planes, and of course the education and government and the obvious things. But you need to look for interests outside of the professional realm and into the personal realm, because I can't tell you how many pilots I've met that have the Top Gun theme song as their ringtone. And they're not necessarily putting on their Facebook profile that they're into aviation, or they're instructors, or they're this or that or the other thing, but they may say, hey, I love the Top Gun. And so if we can get to those people, while not all of them are necessarily going to be instructors, a lot of them are going to be pilots, or they might know an instructor. So even if they like our brand, while we're hoping that they're potential customers, they may be friends of potential customers. And so that's what's going to help spread your business. And you can choose what your budget can be. Obviously the higher the budget, the more people they're going to shove your ad in front of. But it kind of proves that you don't have to be a multi-million-dollar company to actually create an advertising campaign that'll get out there and put you in front of different people. And as you can see here, their example is, if you have a $10 a day budget, they pretty much estimate that you're going to get between 12 and 46 likes a day. What is a like? Like is just somebody who decides to follow your brand, or as most marketing firms say, create a relationship with your brand. And we'll talk about how that correlates a little bit later. Twitter has the same thing. You can create a campaign. I don't like theirs quite as much, because they don't have quite the targeting features that some of the others do. Of course, LinkedIn has it too. So once you decide to do that, or even if you don't, there are ways of figuring out, okay, is my presence on social media actually doing anything? Is it working? Because you may not necessarily see a bump in phone calls or emails that say, hey, I saw you on social media, I want this or I want that. So what you can do is, most of the brands, or actually I think all of the brands, have what they call insights. And these insights are monitoring the travel to your particular page. How many people have engaged in it? And you can see across the top there, you have likes, you have how many people actually saw your brand, how many people visited your page, commented on your posts. And then the people page is actually one of the more interesting ones. It actually shows you things like, where are the people coming from? Are they United States? And then it breaks it down on the 50 states. Or are they from other countries? And it'll tell you the independent or individual countries that are a part of it. And then it'll even break it down to, are they from the ages of 18 to 25, 25 to 30, men, women. So it's very interesting. And what that allows you to do is then change your content or market your content directly to some of your bigger groups, and allows you to then target them and say, hey, we haven't heard directly from your group before. What's important to you? What can we do to cater to your needs or your interests? And again, that just comes and creates that community that you're looking for. It creates that conversation and brand loyalty. Because if people like you, if they feel like you're reaching out to them, they're more likely to stick with you instead of going to somebody else. And of course, Google Plus has the same thing. Theirs is a little bit harder to find. But the other nice thing, and this goes back into how Google Plus actually optimizes your Google search, they actually provide you with code from Google, programming code, that you can actually put onto your website. And it doesn't show up as anything, but what it does is it actually monitors the visits on your website and sort of correlates the visits to your website from the clicks onto your Google Plus page and stuff like that. So it'll actually take it one step further beyond your social media page and actually implement it onto your company page. Also remember that all of this work, it doesn't necessarily directly correlate into a boost in sales. And I think I've said this a few times already, but it's really important because a lot of people come on to social media and they say, okay, I've put this work into it, I've started advertising, I've got 1,000 likes now, and how come I haven't sold, X number more of my product than I was before? Well, it's not necessarily going to always be about that. It's eventually supposed to grow some of your actual sales and stuff like that, but again, it's more about the communications, the building the relationship, and then slowly ushering them into the door and hoping that they actually purchase something. It does the same thing, which is one of the reasons why we still use them. They do have the reports, so that allows for you to actually create something that can then be printed off, because the Facebook, the Twitter, the Google Plus, all their insights is something that you see on their website. What Hootsuite does is if you actually had to provide a report to, say, a board or a CEO or somebody who owns the company and say, here's what I've been doing, what it'll actually do is it'll allow you to say, here's my analysis of the cost that I've sent for the advertising versus the amount of clicks or the amount of followers that I've received. It'll take all of those statistics and put it into a very professional-looking report. Some of those things are things that you have to pay for in terms of the pro account with Hootsuite, but it is still a valuable resource if that's a way that you're going to have to communicate what you're doing with whoever owns the company or whoever's running the company. So that's a very nice thing to do. And it doesn't always directly correlate in sales, as we said. So the other thing, and again, this may not necessarily be directly related to social media, but it is in a sense, there's a good thing that you can do in terms of your website or blogs or anything that you may have outside of social media. It means linking it back in. So there are a lot of different widgets, a lot of different companies that can actually directly involve themselves in your content and say, hey, if you like this article, you like this blog post, you like this, post it to social media, post it to LinkedIn, Twitter, Google+. And again, what that does is it may not necessarily directly correlate back into your company pages, but it should still have your logo, it should still be talking about your brand, And again, for every share that you get, it's then shared with all the followers that that particular person has, and if that stems the domino effect again, further entrenching you into hopefully pop culture and society. So how do you do that? Well, a lot of companies will have already implemented into various news posting sites and stuff like that. But if you own your own company or you own your own website, there are simple ways and mostly free ways to actually implement these sorts of buttons. What I found was, and I'm actually in the process of potentially putting this on NAFI's website for our news function, is this Share This page. It's a website. If you Google Share This, you'll come up with this particular page, and it'll actually allow you to decide what you want. It'll allow you what kind of buttons, what sort of social media do you use, what would you like to embed into the page. And what it actually does is once you decide what you want, it will create the computer coding that you can then just take and put into the code side of your website, and for each page that you have that implemented on, you could then share that page directly using the social media. And the nice thing is if the individual is, let's say I'm logged into my personal Facebook account, if I go to that website, it's going to link it directly to mine. So I don't have to actually do anything. I just click the button, and it'll automatically post it, and I can forget about it and go back to it later. So that's a really useful function in sharing the things that you do. And again, it comes back to getting other people to do the work for you. It's nice to put the effort into it, but if you can get other people to share your stuff, then you've just basically gotten it for free. Let's see, I've got a question here. How often should you update your website pages and other social media sites? That's a good question. And it comes back to the Facebook sort of, and I use Facebook because that's the most popular and biggest one. They changed their algorithms. And so it used to be that anything that I would post, anybody could see, and they would see it, and they could choose whether they wanted to ignore it or not. What's happened is that Facebook realized that they could charge for this sort of thing and that it had value. And so what they did is they said, well, only X number of your followers may see this post, and then the other ones will see the next post, and then the other ones will see the next post. So, all the indications that I've read is that depending on what kind of content you're actually sharing, somewhere between 2 to 5 posts a day tend to be the optimum. Now, 5 sounds like a lot, and in fact, that's even a lot for us. Lately, we've been sort of sticking to 1 to 2. One, because it's a little bit less intense. But also, it's a different sort of following. We're not so much on the pop culture references. We're not on the here's the newest movie or the newest video game. It's here's an article about a flight instructor who's doing this or a flight school who's doing that. So we don't want to overload people. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're posting enough to where if every post that you have isn't seen by everybody, then you don't have followers who decide to unlike or ignore your brand because they don't see you doing anything. Could they go to your page and see all your posts? Absolutely they could. But a lot of people will only see what is posted onto their news feed, and if they don't see anything on there, then they just think that you're not doing anything. So it's sort of the magic number tends to be somewhere between 2 to 5.
And if I can jump in for one moment.
Go ahead.
If I can jump in for one moment, John. The other thing we found on our website is that our own sense is that if we don't have the website updated every couple of weeks with something new, it's starting to get really, really stale. It's time to put something up there. I'm talking about the NAFI webpage.
Absolutely. On the NAFI page, what you'll notice is we do have sort of a newsreel on the front. And I start to itch when I see the dates on that get a little old. So I start brainstorming on, okay, what have we done that we can promote, or if we haven't done anything, we need to do something. So it's the nice thing about having that idea that it needs to stay up to date and it needs to stay fresh and new is it does actually force you to come up with things to do that you can promote, and I would say that the social media pages do the same thing. So it generates activity on your side while hopefully generating activity within the followers or the customer's side. So that's kind of the start to social media. I'm sure you've got some questions, and there's always things to learn. There's frankly a lot for me to learn too. I've started doing some research of my own, and I found that there are a lot of great books and resources out there. I just did a quick search on Amazon, and it looks like there's several thousand different books to read. One of the ones that I've read is actually the second one on the list there, the 500 Social Media Marketing Tips, and I really enjoyed that. I've learned a lot from it, and hopefully it actually shows in the content. So as you're browsing some of our media stuff, hopefully you'll get some ideas of your own. And if there's something that you'd like to see us do, then certainly that would be something that we'd be interested in. But I definitely recommend some of these books, especially the 500 social media ones, as a great introductory read. So that's the major part of the presentation, at least for today. Like I said, I'd like to make this sort of a series of presentations to dig a little bit deeper into, now that you know what the choices are out there, how do we optimize what we're doing? How do we customize the posts to make them more valuable? And get into some of the more nitty-gritty stuff. Of course, there's things that we haven't talked about, YouTube and Pinterest and some of those other sites, but that probably is a conversation for another time, I suppose. So,
before we start with questions, I've opened up the mics, but I just want to make a couple of quick comments. First of all, thank you for a great presentation, John. As always, you do a great job, and I'm sure everybody appreciates it. I know I do. Something for all of you that are here with us tonight to think about. There are two companies that I think do an outstanding job with their social media, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned. One is Southwest Airlines. The buzz they generated around a paint job about regaining the 737s has been incredible. Not all the comments are positive, but they respond, and they get responses back, and it opens the conversation. The other company is one that's near and dear to my heart, the Union Pacific. I don't advertise it much, but that's my day job. And just talking about trains generates a lot of goodwill and a lot of buzz about our corporation, which benefits. So in terms of aviation, that's what John is doing, is talking about NAFI, generating buzz, and getting people thinking about aviation. Again, it doesn't always correlate to a direct sale, but it does help promote a positive image. With that, one thing I've been cautioned many times by our corporate resources in my company is that my name is associated with them. So be very careful. If you're on Facebook as an individual and then you have a web page that is out there promoting your company or even your own LLC, nasty comments have a habit of coming back and reassociating themselves with your company, as has been proven many times in, say, the last 15 years since the internet has really exploded. Nothing is erasable anymore. If you say it, it's out there forever, and it's very difficult to unsay something. So think very carefully about what you post and your associations, and if you own a business, you may want to talk to your flight school business, you may want to talk to your staff about things they say and how it may come back and bite you. So just some food for thought from my perspective. Let's open it up for questions. Anybody? John, you've done such a great job. I think you burned all the questions out of them.
Well, and I guess my last statement sort of reaffirms what you said, and it goes back to what I said about if somebody posts negative onto your page. Of course, if there's offensive content or vulgarity or any of that kind of stuff, certainly get rid of it. And then maybe even privately message the individual and say, hey, I took your post down because of the offensive content, but here's my response to you. And of course, as Bob said, be very careful in how you phrase it. Be very careful in your response, because you have to think about the way the individual is going to read it. So even though you write it down and you say, okay, here's the response, it's very politically correct, is there a way that they're going to misconstrue this comment, put the emphasis on the wrong syllable, and turn it into something negative? So you have to be very careful, as you would with a professional email, to make sure that that's the case. But if it is a negative comment and it's perfectly reasonable to say, hey, I don't like this or I don't like that, that's okay. Again, the response that you have should be public because you don't know how many other people are thinking the same thing. So if you have a group of people that don't like what you're doing and your response is something that is thoughtful and understandable, then maybe you might change the minds of others without having to completely ignore them and say, oh, no, this never happened, I'm perfect and everything's great. And again, what it also does is it stops the buck with you. So if you delete the comment and pretend it's not there, they might go to Yelp or they may go to various other outlets on Google and say, hey, this company is terrible, I asked them a question and they just ignored me and I hate them for this. So it stops that and hopefully allows you to change the relationship with, if not several individuals, hopefully that one that actually took the time to comment, because if they didn't care, they wouldn't comment.
That's a great point, and caring is reciprocal. You owe it back.
Exactly.
I've got a question. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I can.
Fred Abrams?
I know that you, it's a great program. I appreciate the effort that you put into it. And I know that you said that P-interest is going to be another topic. But I'm hoping that you can just tell me why it's even of any concern. Somehow or another, I ended up getting involved with this thing, and every time I get something from them, it's about ladies' clothes or shoes or whatever. So I don't understand how I can put that to use.
Well, Pinterest is one that I've been sort of struggling with, and that's what I'm sort of doing some research on right now. I know that one of the companies that has had some success with Pinterest is actually Sporty's Pilot Shop. They've done a really good job of posting things like pictures of instructors, their instructors cutting the tail feathers off after a first solo. So it's individuals smiling and signing a shirt or a first landing or something like that. Pinterest is much more, at least on the business aspect of it, Pinterest is much more of a feel good, here's a photo or here's a video of something. They're like you said, they are much into the crafty side, but that one's sort of a tough nut to crack. So I right now I would say the best answer I can give you is look at what Sporty's does. So go to Pinterest and look up their account. And see the different content that they post. And maybe that, like I said, that could be a roundtable discussion that we could do hopefully after the next presentation.
Well,
okay, great. Thanks.
Just let me jump in for one moment. I think we can get somebody from Sporty's to come in and talk about some of the things they're doing, if everybody's interested in that. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
This is Mark. I have a quick question. If you have multiple interests, should you have separate accounts for each interest, or is it okay to have, not just aviation on one side, but other interests?
Well, it depends. Is it all under the same brand, or are they separate companies, or how does that work?
Well, I have a technical writing company, and I'm a flight instructor, and my flight instruction business is a subsidiary division of my technical writing business.
Are there a lot of followers who would be interested in both, do you think, or do you think that they're completely independent of each other?
They're probably independent unless an instructor wants to create his own, lesson plans and materials to hand out to students.
Well, the nice thing that you can do, and you go back to, if I were looking at the Facebook page, actually I can probably bring it up. Sorry about all the flashing on the screen here. Okay. So what you can do if you have multiple brands or multiple divisions is you can create a fan page for both of them, and then you can link them together by having one page like the other page. And what that'll do is it'll allow for sort of a transition between one and the other, and you can actually then post content relating the two and say, hey, these are all owned by me, but they're subsidiaries of each other, and that way people can see the connection between the two, but you then have different posts sort of going off in their own direction.
Okay.
That's how I would probably start. Google Plus does the same sort of thing. They call them circles, where I can have one company in my circle and another company in the circle, and then you can actually tailor the interests of the page to those that would be interesting. So you could keep the technical writing on that side and the flight instructing on that side.
Okay, thank you.
And let me jump in on that. What's interesting about my day job is we have a lot of fans. As many of you may know, we actually run a couple of steam locomotives in our company. And, of course, there's a whole bunch of people out there that are interested in steam trains that are not going to ship 13,000 tons of coal or anything like that. And so that's exactly how we handle it. We have a page designed specifically for what are known as rail fans. And people, somebody knowingly laughed there, but we have a page specifically designed for the rail fan community that come out and just want to talk about trains. And then there's the corporate side, the corporate sales side, and the two would link together, and you can go back and forth because there is a lot of crosstalk, obviously, in there.
Any other questions?
Well, John, you did a great job, and we're up to the top of the hour. It's a beautiful night here in Omaha. I don't know what it's like in Michigan for you, but I hope everybody around the country is having a good day. What I'm looking forward to next month's webinar, and I believe the third Wednesday of October is October 15th? Have I got that right, everybody? I'm scrambling to get to my calendar, so bear with me one moment. Yes, the third Wednesday is October 15th, and I'm very excited to announce that my good friend Rod Machado will be joining us to talk about matters of interest to instructors. So he hasn't told me exactly what he wants to talk about yet, but there's the tease, and I hope to see all of you there.
And the last comment I had is, again, if you have any questions after the fact, feel free to actually use our social media to ask us questions, or you can email me. My email is on the website, but it is Niehaus, spelled Niehaus as in Sierra, at nafinet.org. And in terms of the next social media presentation, I don't have a scheduled date on it yet, but if you've got something that you'd like to cover, such as Pinterest, submit the questions or submit the ideas, and we'll put a presentation together. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Fly safe, fly often, and we'll see you next month.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.